Hola, audiencia, y bienvenidos a Oye Cinema Club. I am tonight's host, Jason Ishmael Eccles, and I am joined, as always, by an illustrious panel of co-hosts, Michaela, Steve, and also Marina Perhuge. Tonight we reviewed the movie Bull Durham, 1985, I believe. I hope I'm not being confused. Maybe 1987. I'll double check that. Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon, Tim Robbins. Great movie from the 80s, man. The reason that I picked it was, like most movies, I picked it straight from the 1001 movies you must see before you die list, and I have never seen it before. And this has just kind of been one that's hanging around because it's a sports film. And I don't always associate sports films with being like great films, but this thing is considered a pretty great film. So we'll talk about that. Let's get straight into first impressions. Marina, why don't you bless us with your first impression?
Yay. This was my second time watching this movie. I obviously didn't see it when it came out because it was made in 1988 and I am 21 years old. So no, but I still wasn't born yet. But I watched it it came on like TV like when I was like 8 or 9. And I'm a huge Kevin Costner fan, so anything that he's in, I've probably tried to watch or watched. But it was pretty cool to watch it again as an adult. Like, it's so crazy the things that you block out when you watch a movie at such a young age. Like, I didn't even realize that was Susan Sarandon playing like the other person. It's just like I've never seen her as like this promiscuous, like sexy thing. Like, she's always like a mom or something in these movies, like Little Women and a lot of films. She, like the stepmother, like she's always like just like this motherly figure. So I think like something in my mind as a kid was like, can't be her, has to be someone else. Like, so it was kind of cool to rewatch. Just simply like, wow, like Kevin Costner, how young he was. Like, it was just so interesting. Like, everybody in the movie, like seeing how young they were and like just really realizing how much like time has really changed people. But I'm not a super sports movie person, but again, I have loved Kevin Costner since I knew boys were boys, and like it's always good to watch some of his earlier work. But yeah, like overall, like very, very like family, give me that family feeling, like when I used to watch movies in the 90s with my family. Like, you're just like, you're rooting for them and you want them to win and you love the love. So really, really good pick.
All right, awesome. Steve Dez, how about your first impression?
My first impression. So never heard of this movie before. Not gonna lie, when I first started watching this movie, I thought it was gonna be really boring, like extremely boring and slow. And like the moment I was like, "Is this a baseball focused movie? Because if so, I am going to hate this." But then after like I guess 20 minutes in, and it started to get like a little playful with the sexuality aspect of things, like guys wearing lingerie and like all this stuff. I was like, well, you got my attention. and her name was Susan Sarandon, right?
Yeah.
That's her name. She, for sure, I know we're not in like favorite characters or anything, but she made the movie so much interesting to me. The moment like I really started to get, because like there was a point in the movie I was just trying to figure out, because when I go and watch these movies, I go blind. I don't watch a trailer. I don't read anything. I just put it on and watch it. And the moment I started watching it at first, I was like, is this going to be a baseball movie? Because now I'm going to hate it. Then I was like, is this about like the women that hook up with players? Like, and they just try every season and that's what it is. And then once I started kind of figuring out where the movie was going, I was like, wow, this movie is like surprisingly good. Like, that's like the best, like, I guess, little quote that I can give it. Because it was like, it wasn't catching my attention at first, but once it got me in, I was like, man, I wish they made more movies like this these days. But yeah, that's my first impression.
That's some really good takes, and that's something that I definitely want to talk about a little bit later with how how you thought it was one movie and then maybe it turned out to be something else. Great. Michaela, please take it away. What's your first impression?
God, I have so many thoughts. Okay, my first impression, honestly, I saw this movie when I was really young, and I did not really remember. I didn't remember anything. I think I thought I was going to remember more, but when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is like, I felt like I was watching it with brand new eyes. And at first, I honestly was not into it. It was not my vibe at first. I was like, oh man, I thought it was kind of slow. I thought the dialogue was a little clunky. I didn't really love the chemistry between Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon. I loved the chemistry between Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins. And I thought Tim Robbins was the best part of the movie. Like where Steve was saying that he thought Susan was the best part of the movie. To me, Tim Robbins was the best part. I loved every moment he was on screen, and he was so funny. So he really kept me interested in the movie. And then towards the end, I felt like it really earned its place as a piece in romance cinema canon for me. Like that, especially the end with this epic love montage, which I think is like one of the greatest lovemaking montages I've ever seen. It really earned its mark with that. So, but there's a lot of little things, like as far as what the filmmaker did, that really elevated it and gave it a lot more like texture and depth and made it a lot more than just a romance or a sports film. So I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, right on, right on. And I'm sure we'll come back to a few of those. So I'll go ahead and give you guys my first impression of this movie. This was my first time seeing the film. And, I didn't really know what to expect of it. I'm like, I just didn't understand how it could be on the 1001 list. And I'm going to be honest, don't know if it still deserves to be, but maybe we can talk about that as well. It was a really good movie, though. It's one of the best and most memorable performances I think I've ever seen of Tim Robbins, like a young Tim Robbins. And I mean, he's done some really memorable stuff, but this one is kind of stuck to me a little bit. Also, I didn't really know where the romance was going, because the story is sort of telling you that Kevin Costner is obviously going to end up with Susan Sarandon. Like they've got all the they're equally yoked, as they said.
Yeah.
They're on the same plane, man. So how does this thing fit or work? And I thought the script was pretty tight, because it kind of got the guy out of there, and it also presented itself in a way where it's it sort of gave Kevin Costner values and it gave Susan Sarandon values. She had these groupie values, and also but she was a smart groupie, but she was a groupie with a cause sort of as well. It was pretty amazing. And she said at one point in the movie, I only sleep with one player a season. That's my rules. And she pretty much kind of stuck to her rules, which I thought was pretty dope, actually, even though she's kind of falling in love with this other dude, and even she can tell, I probably need to be with this guy. There's something going on here. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting romance film. I will agree. I hadn't thought about it, but the lovemaking scene sort of did stay with me too. And it's a fantastic montage. It really is. At one point of the montage, usually I was thinking to myself, usually I'm kind of sick of the montage of lovemaking, but this is actually good. I don't hate it, right? And it was the perfect amount of time. It was pretty good. Yeah, I did like this film though. I had seen it bits and pieces of it on TBS growing up, or just some weird cable channel with commercials. So I never really jumped into it. I think it does hold up. It's a pretty good sports movies. These guys know what they're talking about. The sports scenes are real enough for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really dug it in that capacity. All right, let's talk about, and you guys have already done this a little bit, but you guys talked about your favorite characters in this thing a little bit. So maybe we wrap that up a little bit. I know Michaela said Tim Robbins kind of did it for her in this thing.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's one of his. I think it's one of Tim Robbins' best performances.
Yeah, you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, you said Susan Sarandon, she stuck out to you. Have you not seen her in a lot of movies before, or have you just not seen her young?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I just watched Beetlejuice 2 recently. Mm-hmm. And something about her eyes.
Is she in Beetlejuice 2?
No, she's not. But
oh, She looks like a Tim Burton character. Is that what you're saying?
I guess so.
That's weird. Why has Susan Sarandon never been in a Tim Burton movie? Like she would fit in like she was supposed to be there.
What about Stepmother with Julia Roberts? Stepmom. There you go.
Oh, that's a great fall movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Great fall movies. And Julia Roberts, both of their performances are fantastic in that. I rewatched that recently. That holds up.
I incidentally own that movie on DVD. I've seen it once.
You gotta love the things you got in the bin at a Walmart when they were on sale for $5.
No,
that's so precious that you have that on DVD.
It was given to me for free for buying the DVD player.
Oh,
okay.
It came with 5 pre-selected DVDs when I bought the DVD player.
Please take
Yeah.
it.
I took it. It was mine.
I love that. That's hilarious.
So, and you, what did you say, Marina?
So, I was kind of thinking about like you guys saying like, oh, best love scene, best this, best that. So for me, it was kind of awkward for me. I don't know. When I was a kid and I watched this movie, I was so much more in love with the love story. But now that like I know who the actors are as an adult, it kind of took it away from me. Like, because like Tim Robbins plays in like that prison movie, and I'm just like, I just can't unsee him in there.
Yeah,
hilarious, right?
The same thing with Susan, like so many iconic motherly figures movies. So seeing her be loose and be in a bathtub with Kevin Costner, who is my man. Sorry, husband. But I was just like, get away from him. Like, so I don't know. It kind of weirded me out. Like now that those people have a name to them, like probably when this movie came out, they weren't as popular. So just kind of, yeah. But so yeah, long story short, yeah, Kevin's the guy for me.
That's really interesting. I hadn't considered that. You're right. None of them were quite as popular in 1988 as they are now. Like this is this pre Field of Dreams?
Yeah, because wasn't Field of Dreams like? Oh, actually, I don't know.
I don't remember. I found myself looking up certain things because I was just saying like, oh, I gotta watch that.
So this is the year before.
It's right after. Yeah.
2 baseball movies, like probably back to back.
They're like, you did so good at it. We're gonna give you.
That's why I was worried when I went blind into this movie because I was like, I know there's a period of time they just made a lot of baseball movies.
Yeah.
So I feel like he popped off like right after, right? Like literally, it's like Dances with
Wolves. Yeah.
Bodyguard 92.
Oh my God, Bodyguard.
Waterworld 95. Like that's when he became everybody.
And then he did Tin Cup in 97 with the same director.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
which is like a lot like Bull Durham, I feel like. Well, in my memory it is, but maybe not if I was to rewatch it.
Yeah, Dragonfly.
But that one has Rene Russo, and I feel like their chemistry is. I would buy it more than Susan Sarandon. It was hard for me to buy the chemistry of Susan Sarandon and Kevin Costner at first. Like I was watching it, I was like, I don't buy it. But her and Tim Robbins made sense to me. They had vibes. I totally got it. But then once they started hooking up at the end, I was like, okay. And I think that was really good filmmaking. Like the way that they shot the love scene. I was into it. I mean, they really took their time. I love that there was like, it kept you on your toes, how it was, they're literally rolling around on the ground and then they cut to them eating Wheaties.
Okay, real quick. Jason, 1 second. Marina, 1 second. Michaela.
Yes.
Let's be real. How many times have you seen that love scene? Because you've been talking about it.
I watched it one time, but I took notes because I kept stopping and I kept being like,
you took notes?
Yeah, because it kept going. Because like after they rolled on the floor, I was like, okay. And I thought it was like funny that they literally rolling on the floor because it's such a trope. And then
it's such a trope, but this is also the 80s.
Yeah, yes. And they leaned in hard. And then they're like post-coital eating Wheaties. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, the sports guy is eating Wheaties. It's just like so good. And then she's like, do you want to dance? And then the dancing is them again rolling around. And then it cuts to them like him painting her toes, which I love the painting the toes moment. I was like, that is such a film moment. Never would happen in real life. Perfect in cinema. And then the bathtub sex, like if you've ever gotten in a bathtub with anyone, it's the most awkward, terrible thing.
I'm gonna say one thing about that scene. There was an outrageous amount of candles.
An outrageous amount of candles. I took notes on that. I was like, there's
I
a
didn't even see the
million
candles.
candles.
I was
There's a
like,
million
Dude,
candles.
I was like,
how long
man,
did they put
I was
the
like, our
light
department in.
Okay, because I kept thinking, I was like, how much time did it take them to light those candles? So they're like, hold
Wow.
on, we're going to fuck in this bathtub. And the water will probably be cold by the time we do. But first, let's light 84 candles. Like,
Yeah, the set designer got carried away. You're right.
Wait,
carried
did you
Imagine
count
away.
how,
84?
imagine how many times a candle went out and they were like, oh shoot, cut.
You gotta light that one again.
Man.
But that's the kind of stuff where I was like, this is only for the movie. Like, this wouldn't happen in real life, but it just like enhanced. It just made it so. That's why I'm saying I'm like, it's canon for in romance like scenes for me because it really leaned in hard.
Now,
I
that makes me
appreciated that.
wonder. That makes me wonder, is this a trope of other things, or was this one of the early ones that had a montage like that? Because by the time we get to like 92, what was that movie? Hot Shots was already making fun of scenes like this. The Naked Gun or
Yeah.
Hot Shots, one of them.
I was literally gonna say that. So I remember the spoof was based on what? Like the funny one was based on what movie? Do you remember? Because like when he's like cooking the eggs on her belly and stuff, like I forget. So what was the name of the one that was making fun of it? It was called Hot
They
Shots.
made fun of a lot of movies in it. There was
I think
Hot
it was-
Shots was kind of like military stuff, I think, and then the Naked Gun was like everything.
Oh, God,
Maybe it was
so good.
I forget. I was literally
There's a lovemaking scene in the Naked Gun where they both put on like body-sized condoms.
Oh yeah, God, Naked Gun is so good. All the Naked Guns are so good.
Like the lovemaking thing. Do we even see very many lovemaking scenes in movies anymore? Like
Major League. Are you thinking of Major League? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it was Top Gun. That specific scene I'm thinking about.
Oh,
from
it was.
Hot Shots, they were making fun of the sex scene in Top Gun where he was like literally like cooking eggs on her stomach because like it was so hot. Like, but that really is what they did in the movie too. And I was definitely feeling like this movie was like some way somehow one inspired the other for sure. Like
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I mean, they really put all of it in there. They were like rolling on the floor, check. Bathtubs, million candles, check. Like, let's take a Wheaties break, check. Like, they put all of it in there.
and
It
making
was
up for
super tasteful though. I just like seeing Susan Sarandon's back.
yeah,
Yes.
I
Like
never
that was enough. I didn't want to see any more than that. It was
I was,
perfect.
like, as soon as they like that started where he's like has his hand running down her back, that's when I started to buy the chemistry. I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel it. All right. Because before then I wasn't really. I was like, wait.
What about favorite scenes? Does anything like stand out to you guys? Like your absolute favorite scene or
Well,
moment? from the
we
movie?
clearly know Michaela's.
Actually, that might be my favorite scene, but I have a favorite moment that made me laugh so hard I had to rewind because the movie didn't really make me laugh, but there was one part I laughed out loud, which was the moment where she's in bed with Nuke and Crash. They have the stupidest names. Nuke, she's in the bed with Nuke, the Tim Robbins guy, for the first time, and she's talking. He's just like young and dumb, and all he wants to do is have sex, and he says, "Are we gonna fuck or what?" And I just like I didn't see that line coming, and I laughed so hard. I was like, "What did he just say?" So I rewound it. That was my favorite moment.
For me, is another bed.
I thought that moment was pretty funny. I thought it was funny that she's like reading poetry to these guys. Like she's like torturing them to like become better baseball players. Like she's like the final boss before you get to the big leagues.
Yes.
And speaking of comparisons, like what you guys said that at first you felt like was it about the groupies or something? It kind of gives like doses of Almost Famous vibes with her. Like she's on a mission and there's like a structure and a manuscript to like how to be a groupie and like she has to abide by these rules and like she's very serious. She's like, yeah, we're gonna do that, but first of all, we need to talk about how you're not pitching properly. Like she's just like so dedicated to these guys, which ties into
one of the better stories about groupie.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess that we all justify our actions, but like she's really like. She feels like she has these justifications.
She's being helpful.
She's like
and she loves baseball so much. And she goes, this is just where I fit into the game.
but the minor league baseball. That was another thing. I kept watching this movie and I kept being like, wait, this is the minor leagues, which they remind me of constantly because they're like, we're going to the show, or it's the
But
show.
minor league baseball in a small town is a really big deal.
I guess it is. This movie taught me that.
Yeah, man.
I
I've been
guess
to some towns that all they have is a minor league team, and they go to the games. They well, the boys are in town tonight. Let's go see the boys. And it's like, what?
it brings economy to a community, like
Yeah.
the concessions, the jobs, the people working in
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
I definitely appreciate it, but it is kind of sad, and I think that kind of is like Kevin Costner's idea of it. Like he was like, I broke a record in the minor leagues.
In the minor
It's like
leagues.
counterintuitive.
I just like kept thinking, I kept being reminded it was the minor leagues, and then I kept thinking like, this movie I know is on, like you said, it's on that list of 1,001 great movies or whatever. But I also know that like when I was reading Rotten Tomatoes afterwards, that there are multiple critics who call it one of the greatest, if not the greatest baseball movie ever made. And
Wow.
I don't think I agree, but I also was like, it's a minor league movie to be called the greatest. Like, I still feel like that's funny.
It's a
That is
crucial
pretty
part
funny.
of the career, maybe because it's like it talks about something we don't think about. Because, like you said, it taught you how important it is. And I think there's a thing in the back of my head that always thinks back to this movie when I think about people and their options. Because I have friends that like got hurt playing pro in any sport, and they end up in a smaller league. And I've heard that like the baseball has like the best like minor, like you get paid more than you would for like being like a
Interesting.
basketball minor, like or like
Oh,
going
for sure. Because there's minors of there's like AAA, AA, single. There's single A. There's different levels of the minors.
Oh,
yeah.
So you
I'm not
work
into
yourself up
this.
through a farm system. So if you're like in AAA or whatever, I think like they were in, that's when like the majors will start looking at you. And they also have what they call farm leagues. So every major league team has a farm league that's out in the middle of America, and they're farming, and grooming their next players.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sign me up, coach. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, it's a thing, man. Like I remember in Detroit, the Detroit Tigers had the Toledo Mud Hens. So they would farm their guys down in Toledo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a part of the game. It's part of baseball. But today I did think about that line that he said where he was kind of embarrassed about his accomplishment in the majors, the most home runs.
Uh-huh.
And today I feel like that accomplishment, if you had like a good PR person, like somebody might give you a crack at the majors just because like you have this accomplishment. Someone would put like a highlight reel together of you like knocking a few of these things out of there. And they're like, hey man, let's give this guy a shot. And before you know it, that dude will have like a 10-day contract somewhere.
As long as he had a good PR person behind him. I think that's the point.
There's a lot of things that boomers complain about our generation. But one thing I will give them, and I would be frustrated too, is like how many careers could have been saved from social media back then. Like imagine if a TikTok pops up of all these home runs and stuff, like they would get brand deals and things like that.
Totally.
Like if you weren't number one back then, you just weren't it. Like, and I love it because like so many legends came out of like the past because it was a lot more competitive. Now, just like someone can like a joke you made, and all of a sudden you're on the cover of Vogue. Like it's just like you just never know. But
it's a hawk to a girl. You gotta
yeah.
things just happen.
I definitely understand their frustrations because there are probably people who were so talented. They were so talented in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, but just because there was no other way to get publicity besides being the best, that they'll never know.
And talking,
They'll never know. But how many jobs were created because of the internet? How many jobs were stolen because of the internet?
and talking about talented, what shocked me was the level of, some people may call it stupidity. Some other people may call it superstitiousness. But the moment where they all stop the game and they're in the middle, having like at the left,
yeah.
And then the coach like, what's going on over there?
Well, they're all. What were they talking about? I'm trying to remember, but that was an interesting moment.
When they were having the meeting?
Yeah, and they kept like more and more kept coming out, and it was like Yeah, what were they talking about? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
It
That
was
was a funny
about
moment.
it was about a bunch of superstitious stuff. So things that they like. I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact thing that they were talking about, but it was mainly about like all these players have so many superstitions. Like from
Like the
moment,
Dominican guy had the what did he have, like some beads or something? He was like shucking.
Yeah,
Remember?
there was something. Yeah.
So this all started because he wasn't like having sex with Susan anymore, right? Because like he won that game and stuff.
Oh yeah, there was something about the sex. Yeah.
But baseball players are famously superstitious too, though. Like when you're on a hitting streak, you don't know when it's going to end, and you just want to keep doing the same thing you've been doing all week
So if
because
you're not
things are
having
good.
sex with Susan Sarandon, you don't have sex with Susan Sarandon. I get it.
Note it.
Which throws a loop into things and creates conflict for the movie, right?
Right.
Like that's actually pretty interesting writing, like because it gets baseball right, and then it's like, man, like has this ever happened before? Like probably. This is kind of interesting, and then there's like a short power shift in the dynamics of the characters all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting? Like I don't want to like play this out too much, but like I couldn't take anything seriously because it's Susan Sarandon. It really threw me off. And she was just like, man, what is it looking like? The team can't lose and I can't get laid. I was like, oh, like I don't want to hear you say stuff like this, Mom.
I think like
That's hilarious.
I mean,
Well, Mom was young once too.
right, like Rocky Horror Picture Show. She's like a pretty scampy little.
I didn't
scamp
realize
rat.
that was her at first either. Like it's just so many things.
I kept thinking of her like in that way, like it's not stepmom Susan Sarandon.
No.
It's
little
scamp.
little
Rocky.
women Mom. All right,
Yeah.
she's got 5 daughters. She's got to feed them and she's got to help the poor. And her husband's off to war. Like it's just like.
And she's a groupie for the minor league team.
I kind of thought like Steve, like you were saying at first, how you thought it was going to be maybe more about the groupies. I thought that too at first, especially with that scene where Tim Robbins and Millie are like getting it on in the locker room, which I love that scene too. I thought that was so funny.
Isn't
I
it
was like-
weird they sleep with the same guys? Like, we're gonna talk about that?
I was all for it. I was like, Millie, okay, she's being introduced. Like there's always a town slut, right? And she's like the baseball town slut. I was like, great. Okay, now we know who she is.
That's what I thought too. I thought she was the baseball town slut.
Slut. I thought it was going to be more about like the sluts, like. So I kind of thought it was going to go in that direction too. So I was also like, oh, okay, I guess it's not. But yeah.
until that guy showed up and said, "Did you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?"
Okay, so I missed that. I don't know if I blinked or I got more vodka, but like she marries the guy who's always reading the Bible.
Mhm.
That's what she's marrying. Okay, cool. But
Yeah.
I blinked and she was like putting on her wedding dress. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what's going on?
Which I don't know if you noticed, Marina, or if you agree, but like I loved that wedding dress.
It was
I thought,
cute.
because so many wedding dresses in movies in the 80s are like hideous and big, and I was like, oh, that was actually really cute. I feel like someone
Hair
would
too.
wear that
Her
today.
hair was like laid instead of being like poof. Like
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, she looks good. She looks good for the town baseball slut.
Nice.
you can
I don't even remember her hair or her dress for the wedding.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. I don't think you guys would have seen that, but unless like fashion is your thing, I mean.
But wait, I didn't get to say my favorite scene. We kind of really
Oh,
got
yeah.
also a bedroom scene. But it was the one where she says crash instead of nuke.
Oh yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, what? And she's like, I was like, she is such a G. Like she is such a she's smooth. Like she
She's
said,
super smart.
would you rather me be in bed with him saying your name or in bed with you saying his? And I was just like, what kind of gaslighting is going on around here? And why does this actually make sense?
I know, I thought about it because at first I was like, maybe I'd rather you be in bed with the other person, but saying my name, like, I don't know. I mean,
You went the other way with it.
I'm like
Oh, no.
think about me while you're doing other people. Like if you can't get your mind off me, I don't know. I mean, I
That's
might like
that's
that
a pretty good point too. Because Kevin Costner like won in the end, I think.
I
yeah.
think as a woman, yes, right? But as a man, she knew that would work because the man
Exactly.
is not, at the end of the day, the most important thing, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, when you're not dating anybody seriously, is that you have a nice time. A PG version that you get to the goal. So yeah, I mean it kind of sucks, but at the end of the day, you still came.
Yeah, it is what it is. Right.
As a woman, yeah, it's a lot more entangled, but it's just so interesting, like how intuitive she was to the male mind that she knew how to get out of there.
I have no idea about that, Marina. So
Okay.
I mean, she had done this every season. Like, she's had her fair share of players. Like, she's known as the one that can get you to the majors.
Yeah, isn't there like a line at the beginning where when he's hooking up with her, he's like, "Oh, you're with? Okay, good." Like they're telling Nuke, they say something to him like, "All right, you're with." Oh, the coach also. Oh my God, I love the coach. I couldn't understand half of what he was saying when he was angry, and it was hilarious. He was just like, just like constantly barking. I loved
Classic
him.
coach stuff.
Classic coach. It's like the director was just like, just be a coach. And he's like, but I don't have any. Just coach now. Coach.
Right. And the guy who played Arliss, he was the assistant coach. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know you were like in movies this early on.
Oh.
The assistant coach guy, I forget his name. He used to be on Arliss on HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew him. I immediately was like, he was Arliss.
I was trying to replace him, but now that you say that, I'm like,
I don't know why I know his name. He did everything.
I just thought, oh, he must be in like 90s movies or whatever. Like I've seen him around. I just,
Okay. But you didn't know that you had saw him from like a bunch of other stuff.
No, he looked familiar, but I couldn't.
Robert
I was just
Wool.
like, oh, he's in a bunch of stuff, What is it? Robert Wool?
Robert Wool, like a WUHL.
Okay, I was trying to place him too. I'm
Yeah.
sure I know something.
Yeah,
He's been in everything. I mean, this guy, like all the movies, all the TV shows, he's been on.
He's been in so much.
Yeah, he was pretty memorable too, actually, for me. Just because I didn't know he was in this thing, and I didn't expect him at all, and he just sort of popped up, which was pleasant.
A fun fact: he was in The Bodyguard. Now I gotta go rewatch that. It was like there was a reunion on that.
That one's so good.
Robert Wall is also in The Bodyguard.
Yeah, I just like went through his like IMDb. I just skimmed it, and I'm like, Tales from the Crypt. Like, what's going on here? Okay,
I got some numbers, y'all. I got numbers.
Okay, what you got?
So this movie debuted on June 15, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
It had a budget of $9 million.
Right.
It grossed on opening weekend that it was in 1,238 theaters on its opening weekend, $5 million. And total gross in North America is $50.8 million.
It's pretty big for the 80s.
That's pretty good for a $9 million budget. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's a nice.
It was because of Kevin. Everybody, the ladies, was the heartthrob. I don't even know when he became.
What was he in before this that was big enough that it would be a lure? Though, was there something before this that was
Probably nothing. I'm being delusional.
So I thought this was like one of his first big ones.
I think so. So what did we say? This came out in. I mean, yeah, he played. I don't really know this other stuff. Malibu, Hot Summer, Night Shift.
Oh, Night Shift. He was in Night Shift? Oh, God. He must have had a small part in Night Shift.
I'm not seeing anything that stands out to me.
Yeah, I feel like this was like one of this.
No Way Out. Anybody see that? The Untouchables.
Oh, The Untouchables.
Okay.
Oh, The Untouchables. Yeah.
That was a TV show, right?
That was a movie with about the gangsters.
That was 95, right?
No, there was in 87.
Yeah.
Also in 91, he was in JFK. Let's not forget that.
But still, we were saying what would bring people out to come see him.
I think Untouchables was like a big break. And
American Flyers. Anybody heard of that before? I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like this is like the thing that made him, a romance leading man.
Yeah, I can see.
For sure. Yeah, Untouchables is the biggest thing before that. It was just a year before. So, he was just on a path to destruction for the next 6, 7, 8 years of his career.
I love his career though, because he's never really been like a Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, but he's just been working and he still works. Like it's just like I really feel like he could roll into Walmart with some sunglasses and nobody would know who he is. Like I love that for like actors. Like you can be famous, but you could also, go to Applebee's and nobody you might be able to blend in if you really wanted to.
I can't even imagine what kind of stuff Kevin Costner just does. Like I can't even. I guess just trying to get movies made. I guess that's what he does. I can't see him doing anything.
I heard he's super into like Native American activism. Like he has like roots in that and things. Like so, yeah.
That might be a thing left over from the movie he did. What was it?
Bulls.
Dance
Dance
with
with
Bulls.
Bulls. That one's a classic. I feel like
That is
he's
a
like he's one of those actors that, just from what I've heard, it's like he takes the art and the craft like really seriously. You know, like he's not. I don't think he became a Tom Cruise because I don't think that's what he wanted to do. Like getting Dances with Wolves made was such a big feat for him, and he worked really hard to get it made. And it's like such an artistic film. And then he's always kind of been like that. Like he just did that. You know, he had that Yellowstone show, but now he has that movie that's like Horizon. Something
Horizon.
Horizon.
Like a two-parter or something,
Like a two-parter, and he had to fight really hard to get that made. And that was like he like put everything on the line for it because he believed so hard in the art of it. So I think he's just one of those guys that's like just really wants to make good art and will fight to make it happen. Yeah, he is.
really
I think he is a thespian.
But I'll never forget his cameo in Madonna's documentary, her concert documentary, where he goes into the locker room and he goes, "Hey, that was really neat," and she's like, "Get out." And they're like, everyone's like, "Wow, what just happened?" And Madonna's all like, she goes, "Anyone who would think will watch my show and consider it neat needs to get out of my face."
He does seem like this type of guy that would use the word neat.
Yeah.
Don't
That
talk
was
about
really neat.
I'm gonna stick beside him.
Yeah, I'll put that in the group chat later. Madonna roasting Kevin Costner, just for you guys.
God,
And,
that's good.
Yeah, okay. I guess unless there's anything else that we need to talk about with this movie, is there anything else that popped out? The costumes, maybe the hair, the makeup. I mean, everything felt very Southern Belle, and it felt authentic.
Can I speak real quick for Michaela? That sex scene at the
You guys, that like made the movie for me because up until that point, I was like, I don't know, and then that sex scene, I was like, okay, I get it. All right.
Was that? Did everybody say their favorite scene?
Yeah, no, you and Steve didn't say yours.
Oh, I didn't say mine, huh? I guess I didn't say my favorite scene. There's a couple of scenes that I thought that were pretty interesting. I like the scene where Tim Robbins and Kevin Costner kind of learning each other and they're on the mound and they're playing the game or whatever. And he's trying to discipline him, you know, like, "Hey, why don't you listen to the older, wiser guy that's your actual catcher? Like, I can see things that you can't see. Pay attention." And he sabotages him to like teach him a lesson. Like, I'll make sure you lose if you don't listen to me. I had conflicting thoughts about that when I was watching the movie. I was like, whoa, I don't know if that's cool, man. Like, the team's losing because you want to discipline this one guy. How is that fair? But also the goal that he was brought in to do is to get this guy to the majors, get him ready. So that's his whole goal. His goal isn't to win games, and it doesn't even matter if they win games because it's a farm league. That's not, no one cares for real. Like, we're here to develop people. And so, like, once I kind of considered that, I was like, I really like that scene, man. Because Kevin Costner like really knows the importance of the scene, and I thought both of the actors played it like really well.
Oh,
Yeah, I was thinking with that scene too. Like I was like, "You shadies," and I'm like,
yeah.
you know, like yeah, it did help them bond. But like, let's be real, like men are different when it comes to bonding. Because like that right there with two chicks, they would have never talked to each other the rest of the movie. Like cut off, snips. Bros
You get
are like,
mean girls after that. You get mean girls on the mound.
bros are like, wow, like yeah, you really meant
That's
that.
hilarious. No, you're right. That's a different dynamic. That's also, I think, something that sports kind of offers in a way. That might be a little bit different. Yeah, you're right. The dynamics have to be a little bit different. Did we get you, Steve? Did we get your favorite scene?
I mean, I can mention some. I mean, some of mine are some that already got mentioned, but just to mention different ones, will be like I really like the scene when like he's already so excited of like, I'm going to the show, I'm going to the majors.
Yeah.
And then he goes there where he's playing pool, and he goes like, "Hey, come on, I'll take you out of this shithole or whatever." And then the black guy goes like, "What you talking about my business, bro?" Like,
Yes.
he's like, "What are you talking shit about my business, bro?" Like, that to me was
That's pretty fun.
And like Kevin Costner had just like riled him up, and then the guy was like, wait, and he's like, no. But I was like, Kevin, you kind of like that was kind of your fault. Like you kind of riled him up, and then the guy's reaction I felt like was valid. Like, what are you talking about my business? He's like,
I agree with you 1,000%.
That's your fault, dude. Yeah.
But under like the cloak of the weirdness of that scene, I guess the lesson is like sort of teaching him to like respect his elders and respect where he came from and know your history. And I think maybe that's what they were trying to say. But you're right, it is thinly veiled and kind of like mysteriously cloaked with weird acting choices. Maybe I have to go back and watch it. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Like where that scene, like, it does feel like weird and manipulative. I feel like by the end of this thing, everybody's manipulating Nuke.
Yes.
Guy, because like, and he never gave up. Like, he really wanted to buy him a drink. Like, he was just like, every time he snapped, he was like, okay, but let's just get out of here. Like, I get your point.
Yeah.
If you want to get you a drink, let's go. Kevin was like, I'm not leaving this pool hall. Get out of my face. I felt he was jealous though. Like,
I did too.
Yeah. I want to enable and I want to like excuse it, but at the end of the day, I just really think it was hard for him. Like, even though he knew he was supposed to help him, it still kind of sucks that he never made it to the show himself.
Yeah, they got him out there as soon as the thing was over.
Yeah.
And talking about that, real quick, I really like one of the themes that I really enjoyed about this movie was the fact that like they really showcase like a struggle with sexuality in the sense of like he was like putting on the lingerie and stuff, and at first he didn't even know how to put it right. So Kevin Costner came and fixed it. Say, hey, this goes to the front, buddy. And
do you feel like we were jaded because we just did Brokeback Mountain last week?
I miss Brokeback.
Maybe that's why. But the other thing was when he started to pitch all the time, he was like, "I'm not queer."
Oh, that was another thing that I loved, like their internal monologue while they were pitching or catching. I loved that. I loved like hearing that because at first I was kind of like, "Oh, that's like an interesting thing." But then I enjoyed hearing that. I thought that was an interesting choice.
I thought it was cool too because it feels like a picture. A picture is questioning everything. They're talking. They're thinking through all types of stuff when they're up there.
Yeah, it's just interesting that you have like Susan Sarandon kind of narrating in pockets throughout the movie. She like pops in and adds like this poetic narration, and then you also hear the internal thoughts of the pitcher, which is unusual. But I thought that was really interesting because it makes sense because he's a pitcher and you're hearing like this kind of thought process happen. So I thought that was an interesting choice and I liked it.
Okay, I do want to challenge you guys. Go ahead, Steve.
So real quick, because that's the reason I mentioned it. So I'm recalling it back to that one scene. So before that scene that he's getting fired basically from it, and they were questioning his sexuality, all this stuff. Like they're doing the gayest thing over there. They literally like got out of a game. They're all naked. They're slapping each other's butts.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yes.
And they're like, "Hey, come to my office."
Oh man, like I'm gonna say it again. I feel like it was just too soon after us reviewing Brokeback Mountain. So,
well, I didn't get any of this gay stuff, so I guess you guys are all.
We were just hypersensitive. We were hypersensitive.
Listen, I all went right over my head. I didn't even. I caught none of it. I was like, this is what's happening in the 1980s locker room.
My first time watching this movie. You guys watched this movie multiple times. So
but even me watching it before,
it felt fresh.
I was like, did I block out the queer stuff? Like, did I forget? Like, is this in a dark place in the back of my head that I didn't want to see Kevin Costner? So it was just very interesting that they like played along those lines, but it was nothing. It was just
that just felt like sports stuff to me. Like guys get gay in sports, like they do though, and it's like not gay because it's sports. Like football's the gayest thing ever. Like
it's super gay.
They're up against each other's butts and they're like pushing each other, and all the like linebacker, all those names are like. It's just so homoerotic, and yet it's all like, and they're slapping each other's butts and like walking around naked. I'm just all of it. Like So I just think of it as like sports.
We support the gays. Keep going.
Sports stuff.
Sports day.
Yeah,
Tim
sports
Robbins
guys being
does
sports
question
guys.
himself though, doesn't it? He goes, "Am I queer?" Like, doesn't he
I
say that
know,
before?
yeah. Or he says, I'm not queer. Or I'm not queer or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like he gave it a moment's thought though. Like, am I? You know,
'Cause he's
like so
wearing
he
the-
considered it for a moment. Like, I guess he decided, no, I guess I'm not. But yeah, he did
Yeah.
consider it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I have a question for you guys because
Mhm.
when I was watching the movie, this was like so prominent to me that I had to check it a couple times. I at first was like, okay, this movie takes place in the 80s. And then based on set design and costume, I was like, hold on, does it take place in the 50s? Because there was like old cars and the way Susan Sarandon dresses, and even their outfits like looked like they could have been retro. But then I was like, no, it is the 80s. But I think that's an intentional thing from the filmmaker and even the way it was shot at times, like the framing of the way that they were framed and like their romance moments felt very much like a 50s romance film to me at times. So I feel like it was in a lot of ways like an homage to that era of movies. But I was just wondering if any of you noticed all of those like 50s kind of elements. Like she was wearing like a polka dot dress that was very 50s at one point.
Well,
and
the only reason I wouldn't think it was necessarily the 50s is because there was a black business owner.
That's bad.
I,
There you go. Well, there were a lot of
I
moments
think-
where I'd be like, oh, he's wearing like a band t-shirt. Okay, it's not but then there was like other moments where I was like, wait a second, like, because it was so leaning in.
I think that might be a testament to the fact that they're in an old town in the South. Like they're in they're in a small little baseball town in like North or South Carolina, so they're kind of country. And the dresses that they were wearing were kind of like, felt like designing women for me, just like old Southern Belle or daughters of Southern Belle's kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
but
South
there's
takes longer to modernize, so they probably were still wearing stuff.
I thought it was like an intentional. I was like, I think the filmmaker, just based on the shots, Ron Shelton, I thought maybe it was intentionally paying
he's probably
homage
from that
to.
era. Yeah, it does feel like it could easily had been shot in the 50s. The way that
I felt like if some of the scenes, I felt like if you put them in black and white, you could have believed they were
like the sex scene.
like the sex scene.
I
think I need to watch it again to double check.
In the 50s, they will be sleeping in different beds, no?
Absolutely. Lucy and Ricky style.
Your homework is I need to know how many candles were in the bathroom specifically.
Oh, God, I will go back.
I
guess I'll
you
go
counted
back
84.
and watch it. 84, yeah. So many.
All right, well, I guess we could jump into final thoughts, shall we not? Steve, why don't you take it away for us? Final thought.
Final thought. This movie is just like one of those Mexican candies, like you look at it and you go like, WTF is this? Then you unwrap it and then you taste it and you go like, this is interesting. And then at the very end, if you like spiciness, you'll be like Michaela and be like, yeah, that sex scene at the end, yes. But if you're like me that don't like spicy too much, you'll be like, that was an interesting choice.
Well done.
Anyway,
I can see the correlation.
There's incredible acting. It's a really, really good movie. And I'm honestly like, in a way, I'm a little sad because like every time we see a lot of like certain period movies, like certain eras, like the 80s, 70s too is a great era of film. Like I really enjoy that type of just the amount of content and value and themes that get played in those type of films that unfortunately, because of the era we live in now, we don't have those type of movies. They have to have explosions and things in order to be interesting. So yeah, I would just wish there were more movies like this made. Like I know there's like a big indie scene that there's some of the films that don't get the proper spotlight that this happens, and maybe in the streaming also there might be some movies like this. But yeah, I just wish there were definitely more films with this type of content inside of them in our next era of filmmaking. I enjoy this movie. I would definitely recommend it to quite a lot of people because I feel like there's a lot of people in my own circle of friends that, just like me, have never seen this movie. This movie has not been the radar necessarily, and it's a very enjoyable watch.
Right on. Thank you for that, Steve. Marina, final thoughts?
Yay. Love Kevin Costner. If you're listening to this, call me. What is it? Hall Pass? It's Kevin all day. He just needs can we just like not age him anymore? Like this is it because he scared
That's
me.
it.
Like 5 years ago, his face started drooping, and I was like, no. And then Yellowstone, I don't know, he got like a personal trainer or something. But he's back. Loved it. Like, yeah, I love me a good a good late 80s, early 90s feel good movie. Not super into sports stuff, but but it's still like baseball is so American. Like, I'm not like the most patriotic person in the world, but like something about baseball just makes me forget about everything that's happened in this country. I just want to like peanuts and Cracker Jacks and good vibes. Like that's all I want. So it's always a cool to see like a story wrapped around like a baseball story. I don't know if I'd recommend it. Like, I mean, like I guess if someone's like, oh, this is the best baseball movie ever, I could be like, oh, well, this is on the top blah, blah, blah list. And the people on Rotten Tomatoes say it's the best. But Kevin Costner's fans, if they just so happen to like not see any of like his earlier work, I would recommend it to them. But yeah, it's a good pick. I needed something. I feel like it's getting close. It's like Halloween season, so I've been watching a lot of scary stuff. So it was kind of cool to watch something that's a little bit more like easygoing, and I'm not worried about like killers or anything. So really good, like cuddle movie. Watch with a partner. Yeah, I really liked it. Good pick, Jason. It wasn't from 1923, and it wasn't in black and white. And it wasn't foreign with subtitles. So it was a very, very good pick.
My specialties. No. Michaela, why don't you go ahead and give us your final thoughts?
Okay. First of all, which I didn't mention, one of my final thoughts is I think that Bull Durham is a terrible title for a movie. Wasn't I mean, I understand it in the context of the movie, but I was like, I don't like this title. I think they could have picked something different. So there's that. But I'd say that this isn't a movie that I would tell people to run out and watch. I think there are a lot of other great romances and a lot of other great sports movies that I prefer over this one. But I do think that there are such interesting and beautiful things that Ron Shelton did with this movie as a director that really elevated it a lot. Plus the performances, like Tim Robbins, I think when he does anything where he leans into comedy, I love it. And I especially liked, he was like lighthearted and playful in this. And that was my favorite part of the movie. So yeah, I'd say that this isn't like one of my favorites. And I wouldn't add it to my list of 1001 great movies of all time, but I did enjoy rewatching it because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And I mean, it was definitely worth the watch for that love scene alone.
Would you see it again?
I would see it again if I really wanted to get John in the mood. Like,
Sure.
Let's watch this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna watch the whole movie, or you're gonna fast forward and play?
I feel like I really had to earn that love scene, so I think I'd watch the whole thing again. Yeah.
Okay. Right on. So I'll go ahead and give you guys my final thought. Again, I really like this movie. I really liked what you guys said about it. It kind of got me thinking about a few different things. And it kind of made me like the movie even more. My biggest problem with the movie is I don't know if it deserves the place that it has, like amongst people saying it's the best sports movie, or whatever, 1001 movie list. And I don't know if it earns those per se. It's a really good baseball movie. I don't know if it's the best baseball movie. and I was going to challenge you guys, if you know a better baseball movie than this, blurt it out. If you're watching, put it in the chat if there's a better baseball movie than Bull Durham. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I personally think maybe Moneyball might be a better one. Maybe not nearly as much romance, but this thing is a cute movie, and I mean, I don't know if it made these guys stars or not, but you can see why they all became stars after watching this movie, because the trio in this film, the menage, the triangle, trifecta, they're doing some really good work with each other, and there's no boringness about the movie, especially when any of those three are on screen. Like all three of them very much captivate you, and you have to watch them. You got to watch what they're doing together. So I would say I should acknowledge this too. One of my best friends that I talk to like weekly, I mentioned this movie to him as us having to review, and he said that it was his favorite baseball movie, maybe his favorite sports film, and he says he watches it. It's every beginning of every summer. He's been watching this since he was a kid because he just loves it. So I mean, some people really love this thing. And he said it's the perfect beginning of summer movie. And I can see that, like, especially if like you like baseball and you think about spring training and, the dog days of summer and, all those little baseball ideas. Baseball is so, like Marina said, American, and it's so summer. Like there's no baseball without summer and vice versa. So this movie gives you all those kind of strong vibes. I would recommend this to people who do like baseball. If you like baseball and you got a heart and you like comedy and you like Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins and Kevin Costner, honestly, at the top of their game. I mean, they're maybe a little better in a few other things, but barely. Like they're really good in this. And they're all young and they're all very charming to watch. So I recommend that to those types of folks. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I think there's some room for me maybe to view this thing again, like at least as a reference point or something. There was some interesting stuff that happened. So yeah, that's my final thought. So I guess the last question that I had was, Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I'm so glad you asked me. I want to play a little game. Like,
okay, what do you got?
Like the Saw character. So I do have. It's my turn for next week.
Okay, it's your turn.
So, do you guys want to? And this vote, unfortunately, is only for Marina and Jason.
I figured.
So,
Why?
Why is Michaela out?
I'll let you know why. But
okay.
Do you guys vote for me to tell you the next movie, or do you want to go through mystery door?
As a Black person in the horror film, let's get straight to it.
You, Jason.
Just rule whatever Steve had planned and just say absolutely not.
All right, next week I'm split up to cover more ground. No,
I'm going to play devil's advocate and go with the mystery door.
Okay, so now Michaela, you get to be the tiebreaker, and you pick either the next movie that I already have prepared or the mystery door.
Oh
the
my
brunette
god!
always survives. This is not fair.
this is too funny. I got to do mystery door just because you did all this. You're doing all this. So mystery
okay,
door.
so the mystery door is that you pick the next movie for us.
Whoa!
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh.
So
okay.
usually we get like more time to respond, but we're putting you on the spot here. So what do you have for us for next week?
I mean, I specifically can think of one, but I've seen it a bunch, and I know, Jason, you haven't seen it. Is it okay?
Do it. Yeah, it's your pick. You can pick whatever you want.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
What about The Thing?
Oh, yeah. That's the movie for next week. 1985. The Thing.
I think it's 80, like 80. It's early. Have you guys seen it?
82. I have not.
Have you
Okay.
seen it too?
Steve? None of us have seen The Thing. I would imagine Dino has probably seen it. That would be my guess. And maybe JP
I'm
has.
seeing already some pictures.
Don't spoil. No spoilers. The most blind you go in, Steve, the better. Believe me.
No, I'm just doing it to share a picture from it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you
I was like, oh my God.
A screen grab of The Thing. That's so great. This was actually on my October's list to watch. So this is cool.
Okay, so this is the movie for next week.
Yes.
The Thing.
I was like, is
Awesome.
that the right one? Yeah, that's the right one, right? The one from 1980 or whatever. John Carpenter. Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
Okay.
So for Jason, Marina, Michaela, and me, Steve, that's TV. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.